This is CBC Vancouver News.
A massive fire tore through a beloved restaurant in Langley's downtown core, completely destroying the building and forcing several other businesses to evacuate. And
people are coming to terms with their consciousness, seeing the death toll, seeing the destruction, and they're saying this needs to end, this needs to stop.
Marking a grim milestone, people in major cities around the world are demonstrating ahead of the October 7th anniversary of the Hamas attacks on Israel and the war in Gaza, including here in Vancouver, where hundreds gathered to call for an end to the violence. Halfway through the provincial election campaign, BC's political party leaders head to the Okanagan to talk healthcare and homeless encampments. Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm Janella Hamilton. A restaurant in the heart of Langley has been gutted by an early morning fire. The blaze completely destroyed the building and forced several nearby businesses to evacuate.
I thought it was probably one of the stores a block away because that's how big the plumes was. But it turned out it was a little further more, just down the street on Fraser Highway. And then, we saw initially what happened was the Viva Mexico restaurant caught on fire, and it looked like it was going on for quite some time.
The mayor of Langley, Nathan Pahal, says the fire happened around 7 o'clock this morning at Viva Mexico restaurant in the historic McBurney Plaza. He says the building also housed a physiotherapy clinic and several office spaces, and city crews have already begun demolishing the fire-damaged building. Pahal says there were no injuries reported. Police say a 33-year-old man is dead and another man in his 30s was injured following a vehicle collision in Surrey this afternoon. Surrey RCMP say it happened around 4:30 near 144th Street and Highland Drive. 144th was shut down in both directions between 64th and 68th Avenues. The Integrated Collision Analysis and Reconstruction Service has been called in to investigate. Police say a driver is recovering from minor injuries after a car veered off the road, rolled over an embankment, and landed upside down in a suburban Maple Ridge backyard Friday.
And I noticed like this car coming probably 150. I didn't think anything of it. All of a sudden I see it hit a ditch, jump. Oh man, I think it cleared about maybe 4 properties over the fence, and then it wall ride the whole side of the retaining wall, and then it ended upside down in someone's backyard.
Ridge Meadows RCMP responded to reports of the rollover in the 14,000 block of Meyer Drive. BC Emergency Health Services says 2 ambulances were dispatched and paramedics treated the driver at the scene before transporting them to the hospital. Monday marks exactly 1 year since the Hamas attacks on Israel that sparked the war in Gaza and set in motion the widening conflict in the Middle East. Here in BC and across the country today, pro-Palestinian protesters staged what they call a day of action. Michelle Morton has more.
Hundreds of pro-Palestinian demonstrators gathered outside of the Vancouver Art Gallery, calling for a ceasefire and an end of weapons sales to Israel.
We are having large gatherings like this because people are coming to terms with their consciousness, seeing the death toll, seeing the destruction, and they're saying this needs to end, this needs to stop.
We're here to extend solidarity to Palestinian people who've been victims of a year-long siege on Gaza that has killed tens of thousands of people, including tens of thousands of children. And we see no attempt by the part of authorities in Canada to bring this to an end.
The October 7th, 2023 Hamas attack on Israel killed 1,200 people and saw 250 abducted, according to Israeli tallies, triggering a counter-offensive in Gaza that the health ministry there says has left more than 41,000 dead. Since then, the violence in the Middle East continues to rise.
Basically is the decimation of civilian life in so many different places, in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Lebanon, and Beirut, the capital, as well as the various cities in Yemen, as well as Iraq and in Syria.
It's surreal. I never imagined that we would be in the 21st century. We would be watching a genocide unfolding on our TV screens.
To be here is to be part of something that is so beautiful and powerful and horrific, and how, I don't know, I really don't know what to say.
Since the October 7th attack, Vancouver police say there have been more than 340 protests in the city related to the Middle East crisis. And ahead of Monday's one-year anniversary, the VPD would be ramping up officer presence in what they call strategic and key locations, in consultation with leaders of both the Jewish and Muslim communities.
This is actually the single most sustained and most elaborate and most diverse protest movement this country has ever seen. So that alone is an indication of how not only volatile, but how embroiled and deeply engrossed communities are in this situation.
A rally at the Vancouver Art Gallery in solidarity with Israel is set for Sunday, as well as a vigil at the Burrard Bridge to commemorate Hamas attack victims and those being held hostage in Gaza. Michelle Morton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Meanwhile, in Edmonton, hundreds there marked the grim anniversary with a march. Sam Sampson reports.
This group in Edmonton says it's seen people from all backgrounds join their weekly marches and rallies since October 7th of last year, and that's reflected in today's gathering.
People from all walks of life come here at our rallies and demand an end to this genocide, because it is not an issue of Arab versus Israeli. It's not an issue of Muslim versus Jew. This is an issue of humanity. We're watching a live stream genocide and have been watching it for 364 days, and we can't understand why nobody is stepping up to stop it.
For some, this march was personal, like Shema Ahmed, who has family in Lebanon.
They hit my hometown a couple of times. They've killed family members that we actually know. So it's really impacting us quite a bit.
Similar rallies unfolded across Canada Saturday as conflict in the Middle East continues to escalate. It's been almost 1 year since Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel, killing about 1,200 people and abducting about 250 others into Gaza. In the months that followed, Israel's incursions and airstrikes have killed more than 41,000 people in Gaza, according to the territory's health officials, and more than 2,000 in Lebanon, according to the country's health ministry. Israel's attacks on Lebanon-based and Iran-backed Hezbollah has roused Iran to respond with its own strikes, a series of events many worry could cause all-out war in the Middle East. Throughout the past year, rallies in solidarity with Palestinians and those in Lebanon have kept the conflict in Canadians' minds. Saturday's events, protesters hope, are no different.
I see that we have a much larger crowd, and it is hopeful because it is refreshing on people's minds.
I feel, first of all, our government failed us. Let me begin by that. We should take a stronger position and call on ceasefire way back.
To the Palestinian community, everybody is a family. What's happening is impacting all of us as a cultural unit.
Police services across Canada in cities like Vancouver, Montreal, and here in Edmonton say they're boosting officer presence ahead of October 7th, not only at rallies like this one, but also around mosques, synagogues, and faith-based schools. Police say that hate crimes are a real concern right now. Now, different Jewish communities are also recognizing this grim anniversary. For example, the Edmonton Jewish Federation is holding a commemoration event on October 7th. Staff there tell me that they're checking IDs at the door to try to stave off any anti-Semitic disruptions. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Edmonton.
Halfway through the provincial election campaign today, the BC Conservative and BC NDP leader headed to the Okanagan to talk healthcare and homeless encampments. And as Maurice Katz reports, the Greens were in Victoria.
I'll tell you what, they're welcome to call me names. I know whose side I'm on. I'm on the side of British Columbians, and John Rustad is on the same side as his billionaire speculator friends.
That's BC NDP leader David Eby responding to comments made by Conservative leader John Rustad Friday about this sign outside the house of Chip Wilson, the founder of Lululemon.
I don't disagree with him when he calls David Eby a communist.
While campaigning in the Okanagan Saturday, the two party leaders didn't miss an opportunity to take jabs at one another.
I tell you what, there's a lot of people in this province that would rather not have government, not have David Eby on your side because he's putting you into the ditch.
They also laid out more election promises. Rustad, standing outside an encampment in Kelowna, announced he would, quote, eliminate all 10 cities across BC.
But a big part of that is also to make sure that we have both detox and treatment to be able to go into supportive housing as well.
He didn't outline exactly how much housing would be needed to house those living in encampments, nor does he address human rights rulings that allow for encampments in certain areas. Hours before, the NDP made their announcement centered around BC's healthcare crisis, especially in rural areas. Eby's plan is to commit $75 million in loan forgiveness for healthcare professionals that make a 5-year commitment to work in an underserved area of BC.
We need to win the competition for doctors and nurses, both nationally and internationally, that are thinking about where to practice.
Additionally, he plans to expand the scope of work that midwives can do, including medical abortions, IUD insertions, STI testing, and provision of care for sexual assaults.
This is critically important healthcare work that midwives are fully qualified to do, trained and ready to do, and only an administrative barrier has prevented them from doing that.
Meanwhile, BC Greens leader Sonia Furstenau spent the day in Victoria, meeting and greeting supporters.
Raised my kids that morning.
British Columbians head to the polls October 19th with advance voting on October 10th. Maurice Katz, CBC News, Vancouver.
With the election fast approaching, we caught up with potential voters at the farmers market in Cranbrook to find out what issues matter most to them.
What's on your mind right now with the election coming up?
Well, always, I think taxes are an issue and how much we have to pay. I'm retired, so fixed income, and it's always a challenge as taxes go up. I think that in Cranbrook especially, we have a whole issue with homeless. I just came through from the coast. Homeless is a big issue everywhere. And how is the province going to help communities out with that issue?
Main thing that I'm thinking about is ratios in healthcare, especially in our local hospital. It's our regional hospital, and it covers a lot of ground. My husband's a nurse, and we kind of know firsthand just the impact that it has on not only patient care, but also on nursing staff well-being and burnout rates. So that would be the first thing that comes to mind.
What are some of the issues that matter to you the most?
Probably right now, I think getting back our medical workers. Unfortunately, I have a mother that's senior, and we've had to put her in a home this year. And things like getting just blood tests, hospital care, and stuff like that, I think we're really lacking.
What's on your mind with the election coming up?
I struggle with the issues of supporting the most vulnerable people, but at the same time balancing a budget. And I'm not so sure how we meet those things. We have to pay for the things that we have, but at some point, where do we draw the line? And it's a hard line to draw because there's so many vulnerable people struggling with substance use issues, struggling with, with the inflation and increase of cost of living.
Old growth logging, it's got to stop. It's just very deplorable that it continues. I really would like old growth logging to cease. And there's other issues, but I think those are the ones that really stand out for me.
A small group of transportation advocates gathered this afternoon in Vancouver.
In regards to transit, there's not enough of it. Buses are overcrowded, not just in Vancouver, but in Castlegar and Chilliwack. It's wild. We need more buses. Number two is that it's really hard to get between those cities I mentioned, right? To get out to Castlegar, the buses are expensive and infrequent. We need a provincial network of transportation.
Vote Better Transport BC is a coalition of 12 groups that aims to convince political leaders to invest in better transportation. All three political parties vying for provincial leadership want to expand transit, rail, and bus service across the province, but their approach and the amount of money they're willing to spend differ significantly. No end in sight to worsening violence in the Middle East as Israel kills a Hamas commander in Lebanon. We'll have the details after the break. Officials in Lebanon reported 25 people killed today in Israeli strikes and more than 100 wounded. The CBC's Ithel Musa reports on today's events in the conflict and its deepening impact.
Israel expanded its bombardment in Lebanon on Saturday with a series of airstrikes targeting Beirut's southern suburbs and a Palestinian refugee camp near the northern city of Tripoli. Among the dead, a Hamas leader and his family, according to the militant group. Israel's military says it killed 2 senior Hamas officials in Lebanon. At least 1,400 Lebanese, including civilians, paramedics, and Hezbollah fighters, have been killed since Israel escalated its strikes in late September. More than 1 million people have also fled their homes.
The trauma that many people have experienced, particularly in the last 2 weeks, is immense. The depth of displacement is really big here in Lebanon at the moment. We're talking about 1.2 million people, which is about a fifth of the population of Lebanon, reportedly displaced, according to the government.
Israel has killed several Hamas officials in Lebanon since the Israel-Hamas war began in October last year, as well as top leaders of the Tehran-backed militia group Hezbollah.
They are carrying out airstrikes in Beirut, targeting some of the military arsenal that Hezbollah keeps hidden in southern Beirut itself. But what is happening is that it's also then having a knock-on effect on the civilians of Lebanon. It is creating a humanitarian crisis, not as yet akin to what has happened in Gaza, but this is a process that is escalating.
Palestinian medical officials say Israeli strikes in northern and central Gaza early Saturday killed at least 9 people, including 2 children. Health officials in Gaza say the war has left more than 40,000 people dead. Iran's foreign minister says his government is pursuing a ceasefire deal in Lebanon and Gaza, but he warns if Israel attacks his country, Iran will retaliate. Idil Musa, CBC News, Washington.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau issued yet another plea to Canadians in Lebanon to get out as fast as possible. Trudeau was speaking at the Francophonie Summit in Paris.
There are spaces for Canadians on those planes that have not at this point been filled, so I'll encourage any Canadian who can leave Lebanon to leave Lebanon. We are ensuring flights to be able to do that.
A statement from all the Francophonie member states called for a diplomatic solution to the Lebanon fighting and a ceasefire. Rescuers dug through the rubble of a village in Bosnia-Herzegovina today, searching for victims of a flood. At least 21 people have died. Dozens are missing. The search was resuming after more heavy rain stopped it overnight. It follows a summer of drought, which caused many lakes and rivers to dry up, affecting agriculture and water supplies through much of Europe. Back in Canada, the anticipation was palpable in Toronto today, where eager fans were hoping to catch a glimpse of soccer superstar Lionel Messi.
Messi fever in Toronto. I saw him in Miami, saw him in Argentina during the World Cup, just being there with the fans in Argentina, being all excited. We just can't wait to see him. And here we go, Argentina. Yeah, Messi!
Dozens of fans gathered in front of the hotel where they believe the Argentinian stars stayed in, and prices soared in anticipation of Messi taking the pitch, even though his time on the field wasn't guaranteed, because Miami clinched first place in the standings and enjoyed home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Yet against the odds, the star did not disappoint fans, joining the game in the 60th minute, with Miami taking the win in overtime. Here we have a live shot of Burrard Inlet towards North Vancouver tonight. I'll have your full forecast coming up next.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox.
CBC is the premier media partner of the 2024 Chutzpah Festival, November 1st to the 10th. The festival showcases international celebrations of dance, music, theater, comedy, and multimedia arts. For tickets, visit chutzpahfestival.com. And on November 7th, join CBC guest host Stephen Quinn at the 26th Annual Surrey Business Excellence Awards. For tickets, visit businessinsurrey.com.
All right, it is time now to take a look at our forecast. Let's begin with current temperatures tonight around the province. Starting up in Dease Lake, -2 and cloudy overnight, 3 in Fort St. John, rainy and a low of 6 overnight in Prince George, and on the island, 8 and 10 degrees in Tofino overnight. Heading into tomorrow's forecast, that rain is sticking around for many parts of the province, 9 degrees in rainy in Dease Lake, 12 in Terrace and 13 in Bella Coola. Meanwhile, in Fort St. John, warming right up to a high of 15 for tomorrow, a mix of sun and clouds. And over in Kamloops and Kelowna, a high of 20 for tomorrow. And on the island, Victoria, you're going to see about a high of 17. And Tofino, a little bit of more shower precipitation with a high of 14. In Metro Vancouver, 17 is our high for tomorrow with a mix of sun and clouds. A bit more overcast on Monday with a high of 18, and then that rain is going to return on Tuesday. Well, if you're looking for something to do this month, visitors can take in all the colors of the fall season at Vancouver's Van Dusen Botanical Garden.
Harvest Days is a wonderful fall celebration here at Van Dusen Botanical Garden. We have lots of different activities, live music, food vendors, and some really beautiful kind of local art around to be able to celebrate the season.
More installations have been added to the Veggie Garden and a maze area and offer our fund photo areas. Harvest Days will be celebrated at Van Dusen Botanical Garden every weekend until October 20th. Visitors can also enjoy activities from 10 to 4 p.m. on Thanksgiving Day, which goes on October 14th. That is your late news for this Saturday. Thanks so much for watching. For news at any hour on the go, you can always head to our website at cbc.ca/bc. We'll see you tomorrow.